Hello, and welcome to another episode of How Are You Holding Up? A mental health podcast by the depressed for the depressed. I'm Chris,
And I'm Lindsey.
and now that we have had a week to recover, Lindsey,
Right.
how are you holding up?
So we missed last episode um, because I had a really bizarre freak accident. Um, I would, I, it was in the morning, and I went to stand up, and I had absolutely no feeling in one of my legs, not just like pins and needles. I mean, no feeling, like it wasn't even there. And so I
Oh my god.
collapsed onto my foot at a weird angle, and the entire top of my foot is like purple,
Oh my
and
god.
the one of my toes, it's very bruised. I thought it was broken that day particularly, so I was on some painkillers in bed with my foot up. So um
How
we
is it doing now?
it's it's changing colors. And I can walk on it easier than I could then. But yeah, I was not I was not at home. I was close to a doctor in case I needed to go. But I have no health
Yes.
insurance, and so I didn't go. Um, I
Hooray.
yeah, I could have gone to the ER and gotten emergency Medi-Cal, but it just wasn't that bad, you know?
hmm
I figured give it a day, and the next day it was a little bit better. So, no weird bones sticking out of the skin. But anyway, Chris, how are you holding up?
Well, no bones sticking out of my skin either, but I've had a rough couple weeks. The I've had my Wellbutrin. It's been about 2 or 3 months, I think, 3 months ish. I don't know. Since I was on the lowest extended release dose, now they have doubled that dosage to 300 milligrams. And I would say the number one side effect that I have been experiencing has been far more anxiety than I'm used to. And it has
Mm,
been a very uphill battle and challenging to say the least. In order to kind of get through the days, a lot of the times I'm having to find quiet places to escape to and various other conditions. It is, and being so anxious a lot of the time, I'm also far more irritable,
mm.
which I'm not super into either because it's literally kept I've almost gotten into two fights in this last week because
Oh,
I've
man.
gotten so snapping. Yeah. So I'm
That's a common side effect, I think, with Wellbutrin, right?
That's
Anxiety,
yeah, that was
unfortunately.
one of the worries. That was one of the conditions that my psychiatrist was like, "Hey, if this starts happening, let me know." And I'm going
Yeah.
to be talking to him tomorrow and be like, "Hey, so should I go back to 150?" So,
Yeah. It's really rough trying out new medication, and I'm proud of you that you're doing it. So it's good that you're taking that step. It sucks that it's giving you anxiety.
yeah, no. And I mean, it also just hasn't been a good mental health month cuz it's my birthday tomorrow, the day after this podcast released. I will be 32 years old, and that is enough where I'm like, oh, cool. That's cool. That
Why? Why is that a
uh
feeling?
uh it's I don't know. The biggest issues that have required therapy kind of getting through, they've not been addressed properly, I don't think.
Mm,
And so I still feel kind of hopeless and pointless existence. So I'm just kind of living each day, and I'm hoping that the upbeats from the antidepressants just kind of keep me from going down that track
yeah.
too hard.
Yeah.
And I'm also writing a lot more, which has been
Oh,
helping.
wow.
So
That's great.
yeah, I mean that's a positive.
Yeah.
But along with my birthday this week, there is also Thanksgiving.
Hey,
American
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving. I know that there's Canadian Thanksgiving also, but that ain't what we about here. We're in LA.
So we wanted to do an episode about surviving Thanksgiving, family gatherings especially, but
Mm.
um,
This is
you
also
know,
applicable, obviously, for like Christmas
yeah,
or
holidays in general,
Easter or whatever it is that you celebrate with family, and it usually leads to some sort of
dinner where you're all together in one room.
yeah.
I know for my family this year, we're gonna have over 17 people. I've never had that big of a Thanksgiving. It sounds extremely overwhelming. I get peopled out quickly and I get
Mm-hmm.
fuzzy brained. And I know sometimes with my depression, I don't necessarily get so sad as I get really numb. Like I just really don't care. So, one of the first things I wanted to say is don't be hard on yourself if you are in that state of numbness, because I know that for me, I can feel really guilty if I'm like, "Oh, I'm surrounded by people who love me and we're all having a lovely time," except for me, who feels nothing. Nothing. I don't feel sad or angry. I don't feel I'm just kind of bored and listless.
Mm-hmm.
And it really sucks when it's like everyone worked so hard to like create this beautiful moment. So that's on one side of the things. On the other side is you can sometimes have a dysfunctional situation with your family.
Yes. Yes, you can.
How would you go through that, Chris?
Well, for the most part, I mean, generally my family gets a well, when I had like more family. Now it's literally just my grandmother and I, so it's not a problem anymore. We just cook something small and it's very
Yeah.
easy. But when I was younger and we had a larger family and we had about 6 to 8 people sitting around a table at the onslaught of whatever the feast was, then it would get a little heavy. There'd be, of course, the standard conversational topics that are not supposed to be brought up would be brought up, and
Oh.
there would be arguments and debate and you name it. And it's as well as the stress that various members of my family would have about timeliness because
Ah.
my parents were chronically late.
Oh no.
So I, as a result, hate being late for anything, and I'm usually
Same.
there, the first person there.
Yeah.
Um, but for these family dinners in particular, it was always just a let's just get through this kind of situation.
I think one of the things that's helped me in the past with these family things is having somebody to rely on that sees what you're seeing, because there's nothing worse than being in a situation where everyone's pretending to get along and everyone's pretending to be grateful and thankful, or
Hmm.
whatever holiday it is, and you know that there's all these underlying stressors and people like being passive aggressive and saying little nasty things, and if you have somebody you can like look at across the room and like you like you make eye contact and you're both like, oh god, there goes Aunt Susan again talking about
Oh
how
yes.
dry the turkey is this year, or you
Oh
know
my god.
whatever. At least you have somebody that makes you feel less crazy.
Yes, I would 100% agree with that. That's why I try to have friends come over for
Yeah,
Thanksgiving.
having some that kind of buffer.
Yes, it's good to have at least one or two people who may not be either in the family or will encourage family members to be on their best behavior.
Yeah. And I know that I was dating this one guy for a while, and his there were a few people in the family that once they started drinking became unmanageable. It was really difficult to
Hmm.
be around. So if you are lucky enough to be an adult right now and not a child stuck in the situation, and you are throwing your own Thanksgiving, I think having it be an alcohol-free situation can be great if that is
Yeah.
something that you deal with. Unfortunately, the best way I think is just to not even have that kind of, have booze around.
Yeah, no, 100%. I would agree. If it is a situation where some people may imbibe too much or they are problematic in their drinking, don't
Yeah.
let that be an aspect. Same with drugs, simply because that could also be a contention point.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, then again, I haven't really been to too many Thanksgivings where, you know, pass the bong around or anything, but still, that's 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 a possibility. I don't know. Um, there's always also just being able to, huh?
So I'm just gonna say survival tips from the depressed and run down. We're like really selling this.
I know, right? We're guys, just like you, just like us. We are all just trying to survive as best as we can. We are we are leaves on the wind.
You know, I survived this one particular get together by using the bathroom a lot and going on and looking at like cat memes. Just taking that break physically away from people where nobody can bother me, nobody could ask me or tell. The worst for me is when someone tells me what to do when they could just
Oh yeah.
instead of asking, be like, "Hey, would you please help me with this?" Or "Hey, would you?" Um, having somebody sign me up for something without having discussed it with me drives me nuts. And so
Oh
when
yeah.
I'm not numb, sometimes I am dealing with rage. And I don't want to be that person who has to lash out and bring up old wounds because I'm feeling hurt myself. And, it's just such like an ugly headspace to be. So, um,
Yeah,
escaping.
that sucks.
Escape, be somebody. My aunt was telling me the best thing, especially as an introvert, or if you're just, even if you're an extrovert and you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed with all the people, be the person who volunteers to go do the thing. Like if they're like, "Oh man, we need more juice." "Oh, I'll go get it." And that way you have that time by yourself in the car. You can take as long as you want,
Yeah.
just to get away.
Yeah, that's honestly pretty great. One of the things that I've always done, at least in the last decade or so of my life, has been I've usually been the one cooking the meals.
Oh,
Uh,
that's yeah.
I I am able to take charge at that point and kind of, the socialization could be going on in the living room. I get to just sit in the kitchen and just work on preparing this meal. And if anybody tries to interrupt, I just shoo them out of the kitchen with a big knife. Don't mess with the guy with a big knife. It works.
I
Don't please don't threaten someone with knives. That's
I
probably
love that because I think I was at one of your events, and I remember somebody wandered into your kitchen, and you were like, "Get out! Get out!" And they're like, "I tried to go in and help him, but he wouldn't let me."
Yeah, I think I think that was the case. Cause yeah, I was just like I was frenzied at that point because I was cooking I think 3 or 4 things at the same time, and
Yeah.
they all needed to be done in such a way, and just another body in my somewhat cramped kitchen just kind of makes me go, nope, nope. I will grow 2 more arms before I allow someone to help me in here. Um, Similarly, in your ability to take charge of what your job or your responsibility might be, there's always a possibility you could enlist the help, or if you are the extrovert, guide the conversation in directions. Try to keep taboo topics from becoming the forefront of conversation.
Yeah. "Hey, Chris, when are you gonna get married? Hey, Lindsay, when are you gonna have babies?"
Hmm.
It's like,
Those
"Could we?"
are those are conversations that get to be shot down
Real quick.
immediately. Anyway, yeah, so guiding the conversation, because obviously the things that people shouldn't discuss that do get brought up a lot:
Mhm.
religion, politics, uh, garbage, garbage, garbage like that.
Yeah, and I think it's
It,
really helpful when there are kids or little animals around because that can always lead to something else. Like, kids are a great distraction, whether you want to have them or not, and whether you are good with them or not. It is a really good strategy to have them placed, dispersed throughout, and then allow them to run and be free. So, if there's somebody who's really great with the kids, having them sit next to them, etc. I know these are things that like most people know, but if you're just trying to like, I'm trying to survive, I'm overwhelmed, I'm exhausted. These are some things to think about to get it moving and be seamless.
Yeah,
Um,
I've never been at a family dinner that has had children at it.
really?
I've somehow
Wow.
never had that happen to me. The closest that I came was when I was the child.
Oh
Like,
man, I have a
that
big
is
family
it.
with lots of kids. And it's really fun. And I also just enjoy when there's like the dogs, like, oh, looks like the dogs are thirsty. I better go get some water in the water bowl. And then, people find me sitting in the dog bed with all the dogs on my lap. So that's one of
That's a
my
good
escapisms.
I was gonna say that's actually a really good idea in and of itself is to set aside little places
Yeah.
in wherever you are there or wherever, just set aside quiet places for people to
Yes.
just hang out, and if they don't want to be surrounded by the hurly burly of so much family and people, then you can escape to the dog bed.
One of my great escape plans, and while it's not fun, it at least gives my brain a break, is I often offer to do all the dishes. So that
Mm,
way I don't have to sit at a table with people who are slowly getting drunker, who I might not get along with, and everyone appreciates it when you're the one who jumps up and says, "Oh, I'll do the dishes." So,
oh
and
yeah.
usually you can enlist your friend at that point to help dry or whatever, and you can sit and chat and uh,
Hmm.
reboost yourself.
That is
So,
very true.
hopefully, some of these were somewhat helpful. Holidays are difficult, that especially when it's the first holiday without somebody. Um,
Mm,
a tip for you if you've lost someone this year, like I did. Um, I've celebrated the past few Christmases with my grandmother up in Alaska, and this year she passed. And the other day I was doing dishes and I thought I'd put on some Christmas music way ahead of schedule. I usually don't do it until after Thanksgiving.
mm,
And I started listening to them, and then I just started sobbing. I had no idea what the effect of having the music that I kind of started associating with her was going to have on me. And I was really thankful that I was by myself for that moment to like think of her and mourn her and those times that we had and be grateful for them too. Instead of it, the first time I hear Christmas music, I'm with people.
yeah.
So that might be something to keep in mind just to fortify yourself. If there's, particular smells or sounds that you associate with that person, the first time, maybe trying to do that when you're by yourself.
Yeah. No, that's
Yeah.
absolutely a great idea. Every single time that we've had a death in our family that's kind of led to the dinner the following whatever the celebration is, it
Hmm.
has always been quite difficult, but we typically do have, at least in my family, we have a weird interesting way of kind of being, I don't know a better way to put it, happy thinking about those who've left and those who've passed and those who are no longer in our lives. It's just we get to sit there and just go, oh yeah, that person would have probably hated this, or that person would remember when Grandpa would do blah blah blah, or this soup isn't hot enough, or
Yeah,
whatever it is that you're all able to kind of reminisce and step away from the tragedy of the situation and remember all of the good times that have been had. Does
that's
kind of
lovely.
grow.
I like
There's
that.
sort of an appreciation.
Yeah.
But
Well, on that
af-
note,
I was going to say, after speaking of appreciating, once you have removed everyone from your place, if you are the one hosting, there's nothing wrong with just giving yourself a little treat. Like, you did it.
I
Whatever,
deserve this.
whatever you have been through, like you've just survived a holiday dinner with your family. You've done it. You can rest, you can relax for a little bit.
We're
You
so
did
proud
it.
of you guys. We're so thankful for you.
Yes.
I'm grateful for the audience that we've had, and I think about you guys all the time and how much you've influenced my life, being able to do this podcast. So thank you for that, and I hope that your holiday is delicious and full of love.
Yes, could not agree more. And as for us, follow us on Instagram at HAYHU Podcast, like our Facebook page, subscribe to the subreddit. If you want to support us directly, visit our Patreon, or if you want to send us something directly, go ahead and email mailbag@howareyouholdingup.com.
And as always,
Don't
don't tell
tell
us
us to
to
just
just get
get
over
over
it.
it.